questions in the chat, or after, if you have any questions you would like to ask personally after the speaker has finished their presentation, there is also a possibility to do so. Talking about the topics of today's event, first of all, we have Maria Claudia Bodino with us. Maria Claudia is a team leader at the Artificial Intelligence Data and Innovation Policy sector from Digit at the European Commission, and she will be talking about EU Big Data Test infrastructure. Maria has a long track record of working experience in the data industry, so definitely we will hear about very interesting projects and very useful one. Next, we will be joined by Sylvie Hobden and also Begaj. They are both coming from the UK Responsible Technology Adoption Unit and are going to talk about public attitudes to data and AI tracker survey, which took place already for the third time. So we were talking about the results of the tracker survey, how this tracker survey begins, and what are the purposes of it. And last but not least, we have here with us Rainer Türner from the State Information Authority, who would be talking about data-driven service adoption. So, to begin with, welcome Maria. And Maria, thanks for joining us. I'll stop sharing my screen and
thank you. Thank you, Sophia. Hi, everybody. I hope you can see my slide that probably are still loading. So thanks again for this invitation. I'm very happy to present today, even because I studied Italian, so I have a kind of connection with your country. So my name is Maria Claudia, and today I would like to present you an initiative that is called Big Data Test Infrastructure. By the way, the presentation is going to be in English, but in our website, you can find also some important resources that have been translated in all the European languages. And the idea is to facilitate, the understanding, but also the adoption of this solution in the different European member states, because very often people working in the public sector are not very familiar in speaking in English or other different national languages. So our agenda for today is the following. I'm going to quickly introduce the project. Then in the second section, I'm going to provide you some concrete example, how to use this data science playground in a very tangible and concrete, daily activities. And finally, I would like to share with you some interesting initiatives that you can also follow and spread around your network. So let's start from the policy timeline. It's very important to have always in mind the policy framework around the topic we are discussing. In this case, we are discussing about public sector information. And in this slide, I try to summarize the main important pillars that the European Union is trying to, to streamline in order to have a coherent but also a very structured policy framework around the topic of data and public sector information. I was working also at the national level, and I'm sure that some of these names are very familiar to you. For example, the Open Data Directive, where member states need to publish via API specific data set like business registry or statistical information. And then moving forward, we had the Data Governance Act, the AI package, the Data Act, and finally, one of the most relevant legislation targeting the public sector is the Interoperable Act that is in power from less than 2 weeks. So that's something very, very new, and I recommend you to have to read it and to also to ask questions if this is not clear. So this is the policy framework around data, and together the European Union is trying also to support concretely also with a big funding that is the so-called Digital Euro program, where there are five areas, five crucial areas to target specific objectives. The initiative that I'm going to present you today is under artificial intelligence. More specifically, is under cloud, data, and AI. So what is the big data test infrastructure? So in few words, I would prefer calling this a data science playground for public servants like you and for public administration around Europe. In a few words, it's basically an enabler for a data-driven public sector, and it's a playground that is free and ready to use, where you can find many open source tools to start analyzing your information and try to get extra knowledge from the data that you currently have, or maybe that you are publishing on your open data portal, or you are creating together between departments. This infrastructure is completely deployed in the cloud, and you don't need to worry about installing, tuning the different components. Everything is ready to use. Then please don't be, the big data name is a bit misleading. It's not just about processing a huge amount of data, but it's in general for public sector information, with the only condition that we don't allow the usage of personal data. About objectives. Now, why the European Commission is pushing for this platform? I would say it's easy to understand, because we want to improve the way public sector is extracting knowledge and creating collective knowledge on top of data that very often, are stuck in silos and they are not interoperable. We also want to provide a concrete tool to be aligned with the requirement of the Open Data Directive. And the idea is also to foster business to government data sharing for public good. This was a clear case during COVID, when government needed to have fresh data, real-time data, and this is happening most of the time if you are able to partnership with the private companies and to define successful data sharing procedures. Then finally, probably you heard about the European data strategy, where the main goal is to create thematic data spaces, for example, the e-procurement data space, the mobility data space, and this tool, the big data test infrastructure, it's also there to support and to provide a testing environment where public administration, alone or together, they can run experiments, and they can and then move to a more operational environment in the context of data spaces. Who is the BDTI for? Definitely, it's for you. So if you are working in a department or in a public administration, it doesn't matter if it's a small, tiny village in Estonia or if it's a ministry, it's totally the same for us. You can apply for free for this infrastructure. And what we really see as a successful partnership is to have also to onboard the students that maybe are doing their PhD or their master thesis, and at the same time try to maybe identify an interesting business question and to collaborate together on this platform, where maybe people that have a more technical background can implement the project, and on the other side, the public administration can really support with domain expertise. At the same time, we are more than happy also to onboard companies or small startups that are working in the GovTech sector. So that's why we are really trying to foster these synergies. So again, if you are a public servant, if you don't have already a big data science infrastructure in your department or in your public administration, this is definitely for you. Why we think you should use the BDTI? Again, it's free. It's free for 6 months, and then you are going to ask me why 6 months? Because the 6 months ideally is the amount of time that it's okay to define a proof of concept in the prototype. At the same time, after the 6 months, you are going to receive support, and we are going to support you in the so-called exit package. So the idea is that what you delivered, what you developed, will be, let's say, exported. And also, we are going to support you in implementing your development in your infrastructure. By the way, very soon we are going to open all the code, so all the development code behind infrastructure as open source. So this means that you can easily fork the repository. Maybe this is a bit technical, and you can reinstall the infrastructure or on your own, and basically on your own environment. So I don't know if in the audience we have many data scientists or people working with data, but you know that when it's about starting a data journey, it's basically very, very close to cooking, no? It's like cooking a dish. So the idea is to have a clear business question in mind, or a challenge, or maybe a problem statement that you want to solve. And then you need ingredients. And on the other side, you need good tools, no, to process these ingredients. So you need to find the right ingredient. They need to be high quality information. Then you need to start slicing and dicing your ingredients. So basically, you need to clean your ingredient and try to prepare your data in the way you need to have them. And then finally, you start analyzing your data. That's when you are mixing your data together. Maybe you are trying to connect the dots, and you can really try different combination of this information to create knowledge on top of that. Finally, depending on your audience, maybe you are addressing some key messages to citizens or maybe to policymakers. You need to understand which is the best way to serve, to present your findings. And it's where magically data that by itself it's useless start having a lot of knowledge and also to spread some key message that it's what you want to do. That's exactly where we are going to support you. So you have the ingredients, you have probably your data that are public available in the data portal or internally in your departments, and we are going to provide you the right tools to process all this information. So in this slide, you can see the very classical data journey that starts from collecting the data, processing, analyzing, and finally visualizing the data, the information, let's say. And you can see around this circle many icons. These are the different open source tools that we are offering. In the other slide, it's the same. I mean, it's the same information, but structured in a different way. Maybe some of these tools are already familiar to you. And the important thing is that everything is open source. So every tool is open source. Each of them is freely available. And this is a very good, important condition, because we don't want to create any lock-in with private companies, but at the same time, we want to provide you a sustainable infrastructure, no? That you can keep also after the 6 months, and you can easily reinstall your tool, these tools, basically for free. So let's move to something more practical. The apply process, how to apply is very, very light and very, very easy. Just be familiar, just go to our website. I'm going to share all the information at the end of my slide. You can find a specific page where there is a document, an application form, that it's very, very light, where you need to describe a bit your idea. So what you want to achieve, also describe a bit your experience, maybe using data, if you already have a data team or not. Once you fill this document, you can just submit your request to our functional mailbox, and in a couple of days, we are going to set up a meeting with you to discuss a little bit better your proposal. Once we agree that the proposal is fine, and I think it's the only condition is usually to avoid personal data. And then for the objectives, it's really up to you to define what is relevant in your context. We are not getting, we don't care about the use case by itself, but we really want to support you in getting familiar with data. So it doesn't matter if you're doing something super complex like creating an AI model, or maybe you just want to assess the quality of your data. That's totally fine. Finally, once you submit the project, we agree together that the project is fine. we are going to provide you the infrastructure that is going to be available in a couple of weeks maximum. This is just a screenshot. It's going to be a website where you can directly log in with your EU login. And then it's the way where and how we are adding users to the platform. Again, it's totally fine to have people also externally from your public administration. You are going to be the main contact point, but then you can add external users like students or people working for startups in the GovTech sector. These are just some screenshots how the application looks like. It's very, very, I would say, user-friendly. You have all the services. You just need to start and configure minimum requirement there, and then you can start developing. So in order to be more, let's say, again, more concrete, in our website, you can find different use cases. One is the BDTI demonstrator. The idea is that we want to show how this tool can be used. And we identify a clear, let's say, a clear business question. We are discussing about Elena and her team. They are working in the Dublin municipality, and they want to optimize public lighting to reduce government spending. So they start collecting paper documents like invoices and other many different data sources. They start defining with a very nice tool that is NIME Analytics, a drag and drop tool where you don't need to know a lot about data science and let's say machine learning. They create a process to ingest all the invoices. And then they start visualizing and analyzing the information to really have an interactive dashboard to understand better how the expenditure are there per category. I'm sorry that you can see the video, but everything is posted in my slide. And finally, with the help of more technical people, they decide to train a machine learning model to define different scenarios. So they were using different tools from the infrastructure to basically display different scenarios and play with different parameters to reduce the amount of money spent for public lighting. So everything is open source, also the code that we developed there, and you can find the material under this repository. Then very recently, we delivered the BDTI Essential course, and the idea was again to have a clear use case with specific personas. We have Zoe and her team. They are working in an educational department of a highly polluted EU region, and they want to find potential partnership between Europe and between European universities to address pollution issues. So the idea is that they start looking for cool ingredients, open data. They found an amazing open data set with all the Horizon projects. And in this way, they start analyzing this data set, connecting this information with external information, with APIs from Wikipedia, from information from the internal department. And finally, they are able to create a dashboard and to understand which are the most active universities in Europe about green projects. And in this way, a very clear example with people working in the public sector could be useful for you for being inspired and also for defining your use case. So in this training that is available, you can see you can find 5 sessions. And these sessions are very generic. So what we develop there can be easily reused for your project. Of course, it's not going to be Zoe and her team and the problem about finding partnership, but the different steps, also the way we implement that, is highly reusable and easy to understand. Again, everything is available in open source. You can find a repository under GitLab and all the recording in YouTube. Finally, let's spend a few words about the community. Also the previous pilots and ongoing pilots. We had different pilots on different domain areas. many about mobility data, so basically understanding and improving the way people are moving in the city. At the same time, during COVID, we develop a different pilot about sharing information between member states. And for example, the second one now is a production platform, is a specific platform to share convalescence plasma information between member states. Also, in terms of technological domain, all the pilots were quite diverse. Some of them were more focused on NLP, text mining, text processing. Others were more related to, about predicting analytics or statistical information. For maybe we have people that are working in procurement. Procurement is one of the data space, part of this European data space initiative that I mentioned before. And specifically on this topic, some months ago, we published a paper about a concrete use case from Norway, Italy, and Portugal, where they were using BDTI to, let's say, assess and to check the quality of the procurement data, open data that member states are publishing because it's mandatory under their open data portal. Again, you can find all the reference in my slides. Then we are trying to support public administration. We are creating series of tutorial checklists. This is just an example of one of our output. It's a canvas that you can use to define your idea while you are trying to apply for BDTI. We have a newsletter. Please feel free to subscribe. It's a monthly newsletter, more or less, and there we are going to share updates, but also very interesting, projects and maybe materials, papers around the topic of data-driven public sector. As you probably notice, I'm not exaggerating using AI because the fundamental of start developing AI is always to focus on good quality data. That's why my presentation is really more focused on data, but you know better than me that AI needs good data. So you can do also AI experimentation with BDTI, but I personally prefer stress the aspect of using data and using information. And then it's up to you to define how to use the platform. Again, we are more than happy to organize national information session like today. In case you want to have a dedicated presentation for your public administration, don't hesitate. Get in touch with us and we can organize a 1-hour meeting. Finally, these are our main contact points. You can find my personal email, but also the functional mailbox for the project. Feel free to visit our website, provide us feedback, and finally try to define your pilot. We are more than happy to provide you this infrastructure. And thanks again for your time, and hope we have the opportunity to meet soon, maybe for a new pilot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria, for this presentation and sharing this very useful information, very practical information regarding the big data test infrastructure project. So if anyone in the audience has questions related to projects, there's a possibility right now to ask them directly. And of course, as you can see right now, Maria shared the contact information for some follow-up questions and potential collaboration. So I also have a few questions regarding your project. Is there any limits for the number of projects for one country, or there is no such limits?
No limits, not at all. So of course, the only limit is about the budget we have for the project, but there is no limitation on the number of projects per member states. That's not a problem.
Mm-hmm. And because I understand you had pilots, you also already launched the project itself a few months ago, and quite possible that there are already some teams joining you. So having this experience, Can you tell which specialist should be in a project team for a project to succeed?
That's a very good question. I think that in general, it will be the best configuration is to have an expert, a domain expert on the topic you want to discover and you want to investigate. And at the same time, I don't want to say an expert in technical stuff, but maybe someone that is really curious and also eager in learning how to use tools for data analysis and for AI. Because we are not, it's not very complex, but of course it's highly dependent on your use case. So that's why I think that the best combination, even more for you, that in Estonia you have many programs at the university focus on GovTech and focusing on innovation in the public sector. I would personally suggest to have a nice combination of, let's say, backgrounds, people from the public administration with a strong domain expertise, maybe some students from the university or from the high school that is enthusiastic and passionate about public good.
Mm-hmm. And you also brought some examples of what potential projects can be created using big data test infrastructure. Is there anything you can tell about the projects which are not suitable for the solution you are offering? I don't know, some topics, some, I don't know, missing prerequisites. Is there any information on that?
Mm-hmm. I would say the only condition is that if you want to address a pilot where you want to investigate personal data, that's not the case. And not because the infrastructure is not safe, is not secure, but because we are not in control of what the public administration is developing. So we want to avoid any responsibilities in case we have a data breach. Beside the fact of using personal data that is not allowed, there is no limit to your creativity and imagination, not at all.
Mm-hmm. And if, for example, someone from our audience, representative of any public organization, will get an inspiration and, for example, contact you, but with maybe no kind of exactly formulated idea during this 1 hour meeting, is it possible for you to pitch different ideas and find kind of the way for a good project?
Definitely, yes. We are also trying to collect a nice list of use cases, not just from BDTI, but in general from the public sector about the reusing data for public good. Maybe you are, there are many communities of citizen, also active citizen, together with government that are creating a lot of interesting use cases around the world. So the idea is that if you don't have a clear roadmap, we can try to support you in tuning the let's say the use case, and also we are going to provide you a coach program just to have dedicated hours every month that you can use to discuss your use case and your maybe your challenges, and we are more than happy to support you. We are not going to develop the use case for you because that's up to you, but we are more than happy to provide you support. And also every month we are going to have recurrent meetings to check the progress, to discuss possible issues. And on the other side, in order to be helpful for you, we are going to share a cost and consumption report about the cloud infrastructure so that you know little by little also the amount of money you are spending. And if you want to migrate after the 6 months to your own infrastructure, you could already have some idea about planning the budget. So that's something that we think is very, very useful for public servants that are not used to work with cloud technologies and cloud environment.
And talking about the costs, do I understand it correctly that this 6 month of the projects, there is no kind of the costs the agency should pay to you to use this infrastructure? So only if they're willing to continue the project, migrate it to their own infrastructure. In this case, you kind of provide information on how much potentially it can cost. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you for sharing this information, and we will also share the materials and once more remind our participants about this opportunity in the follow-up email after the event. So if anyone is willing to create their own projects, they can contact you directly and talk about the opportunities.
Definitely. Thank you. Thanks again for your attention.
Thank you so much. So, moving to our next speaker, Sylvie Hobden and Dea Begaj. And so they will be presenting today some information regarding the public attitudes to data and AI tracker survey. Sylvie and Dea work in the Responsible Technology Adoption Units within the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, and that leads the government's work to enable trustworthy innovation using data and AI. And both Sylvie and Dea conduct quantitative and qualitative engagement with the public and affected communities to ensure that the work of both the RTA and wider government is underpinned by a deep understanding of public attitudes towards emerging technologies. So, Sylvie, Dea, the floor is yours. The topic is very interesting, so we are eager to hear more about that.
Thank you, Sophia, and thank you so much for inviting us today. So my name's Sylvie, and I'm joined by my colleague Dea, and we're from the Public Attitudes team at the UK Government's Responsible Technology Adoption Unit, which is part of the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. So today we'll be talking to you about how our public attitudes work supports our mission to enable responsible adoption through having a really deep understanding of public attitudes towards data and AI. So we'll start by talking a little bit about the UK government's approach to the use of AI in the public sector specifically, and we'll speak a bit more about our team's role within that. We'll then talk you through some of the most recent findings from our annual tracker survey, which monitors how public attitudes towards data-driven tech and AI change over time. Finally, we'll talk through how the findings from our research, like the tracker survey and other research that we conduct, can inform the government's wider approach to AI adoption, and there will be some time for questions at the end. So when it comes to the use of the AI in the public sector, the UK government is really committed to deploying it in a way that's safe, responsible and transparent. The ultimate goal is that services that use AI are going to benefit the public by leading to better outcomes ultimately, but also that public organisations will be more efficient and more productive because they're using AI. So within the UK government, the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, or DSIT, leads the agenda on responsible innovation in AI. So DSIT as a department works in partnership with teams across government to help them develop and deploy AI systems responsibly. There are a couple of examples of this that I'll mention. So DSIT has developed the model for responsible innovation, which we use to deliver red teaming workshops across government and also within the public sector, which help identify ethical risks of using AI and to identify ways of mitigating those risks. DSIT has also designed and deployed the Algorithmic Transparency Recording Standard, which provides a standardized way for public sector organizations to proactively publish transparency information about how and why they're using algorithms in decision making. Some of you might already be familiar with the ATRS, but we'll come on to talk a little bit more about it later. So there are clear ambitions for the use of AI in the UK public sector, and lots of work is underway to achieve these currently. And a really central part of that work and in meeting our goals responsibly is to ensure that the way that we deploy these new technologies takes account of public hopes, concerns and experiences. And this is where the work of the Responsible Technology Adoption Unit fits in, and specifically the public attitudes work that we conduct in our team. So the RTA is a team within DSIT, and it leads the UK government's work to enable trustworthy innovation in data-driven technology, which includes AI. We do this by developing a range of different tools, frameworks and standards, which help different organisations use AI and data in a way that's responsible. So we're really lucky that within RTA, we have a dedicated public attitudes team. And this is because we believe that in order to maximize the benefits of AI, it's really important that we engage with the people who are going to be most affected by these new technologies. So we conduct a whole range of innovative primary research using both quantitative methods and qualitative methods that help us understand how the public want to see these technologies used and also regulated. And by having this really deep understanding of public attitudes and how they're changing over time, it enables us to ensure that policies are designed to align to public values and therefore ultimately to help build public trust. So one of the flagship pieces of research that we conduct within the RTA is our tracker survey. This is an annual survey which helps us to understand the UK public attitudes towards data and AI. We have fairly recently published the findings from the third wave of the tracker survey, which we're hoping we'll talk to you about today. So first, a little bit of background to the survey. We first conducted it back in December 2021, and we have since conducted a further 2 waves, so we have 3 in total now. At the time that we started the survey, it was the first of its kind to monitor the UK public's attitudes to AI. There have been a couple of other surveys started since then, but the survey still fulfills a really important role in a number of different ways. So first, it gives us a really helpful high-level overview of public attitudes towards data and AI. In particular, this is really helpful for us to identify areas where there are high levels of public concern or where the public has particularly complicated or nuanced views of different AI usage. Linked to this, the survey also allows us to understand how those views are changing over time, which is really useful when we're planning and prioritising where we should focus our work. And finally, because the survey has quite a large sample size, we have 4,000 participants, we can drill down into specific subgroups within the data, which helps us understand how attitudes and experiences of AI differ by demographic subgroups. So in terms of the methods that we use, for each wave of the survey, we engage with a nationally representative sample of 4,000 UK adults using an online survey. And then in addition, we conduct 200 telephone interviews with digitally excluded individuals. So these are people who don't feel very comfortable using smartphones or any other form of like online access to do day-to-day tasks. So things like online banking or online shopping, they're not comfortable with. It's really important that we speak to these people to ensure that we're not just hearing the views of those who are comfortable going online and comfortable using technology. So in the questionnaire, we ask questions on a range of different topics, but today we're going to be focusing specifically on the questions about AI. This is both in the interest of time, but also because this is where we saw the most change in the last year, so it's particularly interesting. I'll now hand over to Dea to talk through the key findings.
Thank you, Sylvie. And just to say hello to everyone, my name's Dea and I'm the public attitudes researcher in our team. And as Sylvie said, I'm going to be talking you through the findings relevant to AI from our most recent wave of the tracker survey. So let's dig into the data. The first thing we found relevant to AI is that reported awareness and understanding of AI is increasing. So when asked if they've heard of the term artificial intelligence, 2 in 3 people told us that they could give either a partial explanation or a detailed explanation of what AI is. And 95% of our sample, so almost everybody, told us that they had at least heard of AI. Of course, these are self-reported claims, so we need to remember this when we're interpreting the data. But what is meaningful is that there's been a 10 percentage point increase in awareness over the last year, which is a rather sizable shift. Interestingly, this increase in awareness has occurred across society. So people are becoming more aware of AI, regardless of their age, gender, socioeconomic grade, or ethnic background. And that isn't to say that there isn't differences between these groups. It's just that all of these groups are showing more awareness than they did last year. So everybody's moving in the same direction. Alongside the increase in awareness of AI, we've also seen people become slightly less optimistic about the impact of AI on society. So participants were asked to rate the impact of AI on society on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is a very negative impact and 10 is a very positive impact. The average rating has fallen from 5.3 to 4.9 in the last year, which seems like quite a small shift. But as the survey sample size is so large, it does reach statistical significance, meaning that it is likely to be a meaningful change and not just due to random chance. We also conducted some additional regression analysis, and one of the things we found was that people who reported knowing more about AI were more positive about its potential impact. In terms of the concerns that people have about AI, they relate to a wide range of different risks, as shown in the chart on screen. So there's no real consensus on the greatest risks, as a wide range are selected by quite high proportions. If you look towards the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that even the least selected option was chosen by more than 1 in 10 participants. However, the 3 risks that came out on top were that AI will take people's jobs, AI will lead to a loss of human creativity and problem-solving skills, and humans will lose control of AI. In terms of concerns around job loss and human deskilling, we have seen this come through in some other work that we've been conducting, more qualitative work, but the concern about loss of human control has been less prevalent. So it's quite interesting that it's come through so strongly in this work. When we ask people to give us one word to explain how they feel about AI, you can see that people's concerns about the risks of AI come through in a strong sense of fear and uncertainty, as shown by the word cloud on the screen here. So there are lots of negative words on the screen, which is something that we saw in last year's survey as well. But I think it's important to note that it's not all negative, and there is some mention of positive words, including excited, optimistic, interested, curious, and hopeful. This reflects public opinion in AI more generally, as we've seen in other pieces of work we've conducted. People don't tend to fall into polarized groups. Instead, we do tend to see that there's a spectrum of attitudes on most topics. So as I say, it's certainly not all negative. And if we dig into the expectations about AI further, when asked about the degree to which they expect the introduction of AI to yield positive or negative outcomes in different situations, we can see that participants revealed their expectations vary a lot depending on the AI application or the scenario in which the AI is being introduced. So as you can see at the top of this chart, just over half of participants think that AI will positively influence the ease of day-to-day tasks. We also saw in this question that there are positive expectations about the impact of AI on crucial public services such as healthcare, the prevention and detection of crime, and education as well. When we asked participants where they think it's particularly important for government to have oversight of AI, the responses align with the sectors in which the public foresee AI having the greatest positive impact. So healthcare, the military, and banks and finance are the most frequently selected sectors. And together, these findings suggest that even in sectors where the public is optimistic about the impact of AI, there remains an awareness of the potential risks, and it's in these cases that the public think governance of AI is necessary to realise the benefits while mitigating any potential risks. I'm now going to talk you through a survey experiment we conducted within the Tracker survey, which looked at what factors were most influential in determining individuals' preferences for how AI is used in different circumstances. So to give you a bit more detail, we asked a question that compared 4 different elements that can influence people's preferences for how AI is used. So the 4 elements we looked at were the application or the use case. We also looked at benefits, we looked at risks and governance strategies as well. And you can see a screenshot on the screen of what this question looks like to participants. So we found that the most important and influential factor that we tested was the application or the use case, which reflects findings from other questions in the survey, but also other work that we've conducted as well as peers in the UK, such as the UK's Ada Lovelace Institute. It's a fairly consistent finding across multiple pieces of work that attitudes to AI are very situation dependent. It's not a case of one attitude will apply to lots of situations. Similarly to other research as well, healthcare appears to be the most preferred use case. So in our question, this was detecting the presence of cancer from an X-ray scan. On the right-hand side, you can see what the least preferred use cases or applications were. And in our survey, the least preferred were marking students' homework and assessing the risk of failing to repay a loan. We also found that risks outweighed benefits in terms of how much of an influence they had on people's preferences for AI, different AI scenarios, which again reflects other research that we've done and the message that's coming through across the data, which is that people are feeling increasingly concerned and risk averse in relation to AI currently. The risk that people were most concerned about or least happy to sort of take on was around the security of their personal information, which is a sentiment that we found echoed throughout the survey in terms of that concern for the security of personal data. The risk that had the smallest influence on decision making was around transparency and knowing when AI was being used. We also found that most risks had less of an influence on decision making when they were paired with the corresponding governance strategy. So individuals were less influenced by risks when making their decisions if they saw the necessary governance to be in place. So that's a very quick tour of our AI relevant findings. I'll now hand back to Sylvie to talk us through how we take these findings forward and make sure they're being considered in further interventions.
Thank you, Dea. And there is loads more detail available and lots of questions that we haven't had the chance to talk through today. The data is all published on gov.uk, so do go and delve into the tables if you would like to see more of that. So in terms of how we action the insights from the tracker survey, the tracker survey is a really excellent resource for both government and wider civil society, as it provides a really broad, high-level overview of public opinion in this policy area. Another benefit of the survey is that it allows us to identify areas of public opinion that are changing more quickly or where they appear to be a bit more nuanced. And we can then really build on the findings from the tracker survey using qualitative, in-depth research to probe further at these issues and get a much deeper understanding of kind of the assumptions and the heuristics that are driving public attitudes in this area. And we find that with a topic as complex and fast evolving as AI, in-depth qualitative research is really helpful in creating kind of very tangible, actionable insights that can have a meaningful impact on our team's work. So I'm going to quickly talk you through an example that you may be familiar with to put this into context. So one of the RTA's key lines of work is the Algorithmic Transparency Programme. This is a really critical area of work because our research shows that transparency is really key to providing the public with trust in data-driven technologies. So the team have developed an algorithmic transparency recording standard, or the ATRS, which establishes a standardized way for public sector organizations to publish information about how they're using algorithms in decision making. Some of you might be familiar with the ATRS, as the standard has been translated into Estonian and it's been adapted to make it more suitable to use in the Estonian context. And I understand that it's currently being piloted across 6 different AI projects in Estonia. And excitingly, in February this year, it was announced that the ATRS will become a requirement for all central departments in the UK, with an intention to extend that to broader public sector over the coming years. So it was a really impactful piece of work, and we're really pleased that public attitudes research played such a key role in shaping the standard. So how this worked was, while the standard was being developed, we conducted in-depth deliberative engagement in which we asked members of the public to consider how the public sector could be meaningfully transparent about how algorithms were being used in decision-making. And when we spoke to the public, we found that there was some tension. People wanted complete transparency. They wanted all the information to be available, but they also wanted simplicity so that they would be able to engage really meaningfully with key information. So there was a little bit of a tension there. And to address that issue, the ATRS was designed in 2 tiers. So tier 1 includes basic information, which is geared towards the general public. So things like how and why the algorithmic tool is being used. And tier 2 includes much more detailed information, which is geared towards people who are more informed or more specialist audiences. So that's things like the technical specification and the risk mitigation and things like the impact assessment. So this is a really great example of how timely public attitudes research on a very high impact topic can really help to refine the approach that we take to complex problems and create a great outcome. And this is an approach that we try to take across our research. The tracker survey acts as a really good kind of first high-level insight into what's happening in terms of public attitudes, and we can take our cue from that and then do much more in-depth qualitative research on topics where we think there are complexities or specific public concerns. So that's all that we are covering today, but we'd be really happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sylvie and Dia, for this wonderful overview of your research. Also, if someone is interested in reading the whole survey, information about the whole survey, there is a link in the chat. You can check later. And if anyone has any questions right now, this is the right moment to ask Sylvie and Dia. I would also begin with the kind of first question, but before the question, you also mentioned that Estonia is in a process of implementation, the algorithmic transparency standard you created. And definitely some of the people joining us today have heard about it because they took part of the pilot that was going on in the end of the last year. So we already publishing some information on AI solutions on one of our web pages. So kind of the short introduction to AI solutions can be already read by the citizens, but the purpose of the standard is to provide kind of very impressive amounts on the information regarding the AI solution and hence make it more transparent, not only for the regular citizens, but for the people who are interested in AI topics and have also more technical knowledge. So yeah, we're moving forward with this pilot, and hopefully in some recent time, some of the answers of our Estonian agencies will be also published. Regarding your survey, I have a few questions. So you mentioned some impact it had on some policies you have, so also creation of this transparency standard. And are there any other impacts you see which this survey has, this survey has on your public sector? Maybe some decisions are taken in considering your findings in the survey and so on.
Yeah, so we purposefully keep the survey quite broad and the questions quite kind of high level. And that helps it to have a really broad appeal. So we often talk to lots of government departments or organizations in civil society who find the data from the survey really useful in informing their own work. Obviously, as it's a survey and these are really complex topics, there are limitations to what we can ask. we kind of can't get into some of the really complex conversations, you know, and issues that we can do when we have much more time to spend with participants and to help inform them about topics before we get their insights. So I think while the survey like allows us to kind of identify issues, and I know certainly that like lots of organizations have found it useful in doing that, it really is kind of most powerful when it's supplemented with additional research to really help to kind of pin down implications for policy. What we know and like what comes out across all our research is that attitudes towards AI are really case specific. So you can't kind of take an attitude towards one application of AI and assume that attitudes will be the same for a slightly different application. So even within the same sector, such as healthcare or education, the use of AI, for example, to mark English homework might be, people might have quite different attitudes towards that than they would to marking maths homework. The views are really nuanced. So like while the survey I think is very useful in focusing where that research should take place, it is always really useful to complement it with more in-depth research.
Yeah, I would say that we can definitely agree on that this is a very data-driven approach, and I believe that's one of the reasons we also invited you today, because we think that the topics and findings you have can be really relevant not only to the UK but also to the other countries. Also, a question related to kind of the scope of your research. When you are asking questions related to data and AI use, do you differentiate between public and private sector solutions? And how do you think, do citizens differentiate between the solutions?
Yeah, I think so. So we monitor kind of trust in different data actors, and there definitely are differences depending on the organization, but there isn't necessarily in the mind of the public a really clear public-private sector split. It's not the case, for example, that public sector is trusted more than private sector or vice versa. It really depends on the individual actors. Like this is very UK specific, but for example, our NHS, our National Health Service, has very high levels of public trust as an organisation, but that isn't necessarily shared across like all public sector organisations. So again, it's not that kind of clear split. I think the public very much like what we found in our work is whether or not they trust an organisation is they use shortcuts. And one of the shortcuts that they use is effectively the brand of the organisation, what they know about it, whether they know that their friends and family trust and use that organisation. And that's kind of, I suppose, human nature, and it's a common heuristic that's used. And yeah, we find that comes through a lot in our work.
And I think that this part of the survey where you try to understand what are the most and least preferred applications, this is very interesting. If I understand it correctly, you provided the people who participated in the survey with different options to choose from. So if it is so, what were some other options which didn't got in the kind of the end of the spectrums list and the most favorite ones? What were the other applications you were presenting, and what was the attitudes towards them?
Sorry, I'll just flip back to the relevant slides. So I suppose there's I don't know if you can see this slide, but there's kind of the way we do it is called a conjoint experiment. So there are several different attributes which are tested. So we tested the kind of use case for the AI, the benefit of using AI in that specific application, a potential risk for using the AI, and then for half of the sample, we also tested a way of mitigating that risk. So what we found was like we can test the influence that those individual attributes have, and we found that yeah, it was the use case that had overall the greatest impact. And then we found that people were very focused in on the risk. Dea, do you want to chip it?
Yes, absolutely. I was just pulling up the list of different use cases that we tested last year. Apologies, that took me a couple of seconds, but I can read them out to you quickly now. So we had marking students' homework, which I mentioned came out as one of the least preferred use cases, along with assessing eligibility for welfare benefits. We also had detecting the presence of cancer from an X-ray scan, so that was most positive. Assessing the risk of failing to repay a loan, screening CVs to select candidates for job interviews, and identifying people who need financial support to pay their energy bills. So we tested 6 different use cases in total.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And as a last question, what is kind of the main growing tendency you see through all these years, and what do you think will only grow in, for example, next survey?
That's a really difficult question. Obviously, awareness is increasing hugely. And as they mentioned, the way we measure it in the survey is obviously self-reported awareness and knowledge of AI. So we don't know the extent to how people are judging that. But we have found that as awareness is growing, people are getting slightly more pessimistic. There's not necessarily a causal link there. We actually found that people who know more about AI are more positive about it. So it is quite a complicated picture. Knowing more doesn't necessarily make you more positive or more negative. It seems to be more complex than that. And as we showed with the kind of word cloud, people's like high level associations of AI are quite negative often. Scary came through as the kind of key word. And I think that tells us a lot. It will be really interesting to see whether over the next year that changes, whether people have kind of as people's awareness and understanding of how AI works, and as people start to see how it might be embedded in society and get more of a sense of like how that's going to happen in reality, whether that does kind of ease those concerns to some extent. I don't know whether it will. I don't have a prediction on that front, but that's what I'd be really interested to see.
Yeah, I think that this is very useful to think what you are doing, and we also had conducted some surveys last year, but your approach is definitely much broader, and there are some insights for us as well. So thank you for sharing a bit more information on your survey. Everyone who is willing to know more, please check the link. And of course, if there are any questions, I guess it's also possible to contact Sylvie and Dea directly to get a bit more about this project. So thank you once again. It was our pleasure to get to know about your projects. And let's give the floor to Rainer. Rainer will be joining us and having his speech on Estonian language. So from now on, we will switch to... you decided to make it in English language.
In English, yeah. I prepared it in Estonian at first, but it will be in English now.
All right, so the Rainer is the architect of Bürokratt, our virtual assistant. He's also IT architect. So the floor is yours, Mr. Rainer.
Thank you. So you can see my screen, right? I only have one screen, so I can't verify. Okay, thank you. My name is Rainer Türner. I'm a Bürokratt architect. I work at the Information System Authority of Estonia. And today I will talk a bit about data-driven service adoption, which is the base of how Bürokratt should be working. What will be covered today, I'll use Bürokratt as an example use case of data-driven service adoption. I'll also focus on some problems we have faced and what kind of changes we have made and what we see as a solution in the long run. So most of you probably don't know what Bürokratt is, so very briefly, it's a central chat-based service, a government chatbot basically, which should be able to answer all government-specific questions and also provide government e-services. We have X-Road in Estonia, so we have about 3,000 X-Road services, which means that different government databases can talk to each other, and different entities can build different services based on external government databases. So this is something that we at Bürokratt also want to use. The problems we have to solve, the main problem is that end clients expect full service from Bürokratt as a whole, but we develop Bürokratt as software only. We just produce generic software, we publish it, we develop it as open source, we publish it under MIT license, meaning that everyone can use it freely. And we also provide some support to make sure that Estonian government entities could adopt Bürokratt as easily as possible. And it means that Bürokratt as a whole actually consists of n number of distributed autonomous instances, like in the future, let's say there are different Bürokratt instances for kindergarten, schools, hospitals, police and border guard, and so on. Today, there are about 10 clients, but this number is expected to rapidly grow after June, when we publish a new major update on the software. And the problems we have to solve regarding data is that we have to make sure that the training data Bürokratt uses to provide its service, it has to be in a format which we can use to train. This is one area that I will focus a lot today, because that's where we made some errors at first. And also a problem to solve is the mindset of like publishing public data might be a risk if it's owned by a government entity. This is something we hear a lot. Example would be like possibly any government institution says that, okay, you can use our data for training, but as we are a government entity, some security regulations apply and so on. But in reality, most of this data is not protected by, it's even not supposed to be protected anyhow, because it's all public data. And this is something that we have created a POC just recently to showcase that. I'll come back to it soon. So the things we did first, actually we didn't maybe focus too much on these ones, but the approaches that don't work is that you can't come up with standards and say that if you want to integrate your services with Bürokratt, then follow these standards. We also develop our own standards, but these are internally used. We haven't pushed them for anyone. And we also have seen that what doesn't work is that if we provide tools to manually process large data sets for training, this doesn't work, because nobody wants to spend time on manual training. Meaning that today, when everybody is quite well aware of LLM-based solutions, then if you come up with a solution saying that take your data, train it manually, have some manual processes, then this doesn't make sense. Our goal is to make sure that if we get different data sets for training purposes from different instances, like as I said, police and border guard, libraries, kindergarten, and so on, we still have to be understandable by our solution, by Bürokratt. So what we have to make sure is that data of different structure works as a whole. We can use it. We have to avoid all sorts of vendor lock. There are many solutions out there where we can easily start using them, start efficiently training, but they all kind of try to lead to a vendor lock, which is something that we have focused avoiding it a lot, and I'd say we are very successful on it. And in the end, we just have to provide end clients the service they expect. What we have done now recently with our proof of concept, and it proves to be working very, very well, is that we take our clients' data on the basis of as is. We don't ask them to change anything, and we create our own, let's say, technical pipelines to take these documents, PDFs, raw data, anything, and make sure that this data will be sent to appropriate training systems. And the main focus here, as I said, is that the owners of these data sets do not have to change anything. They don't have to make anything Bürokratt compatible. That's if needed, we focus on it ourselves, but as our current proof of concept shows, it's actually not needed to change these structures, as external LLMs are, let's say, wise enough. And we will now focus more on Estonian open data portal. We would like to make sure that the training data we use, as long as it's not sensitive, it gets added to open data portal. If we need to make any changes there, we take it from there as is to data manipulation and publish it in open data portal once again, and then download it for ourselves to use it for training data. So that the goal of this one is to make sure that we would be training our systems on exactly the same data sets as anyone else would do if they choose to do it the same way, and all they have to do is use the same data from ODP. And our current proof of concept has been largely made based on Riigi Teataja, or national legislation, meaning that we took some topics from there, all public data, of course, and we used them for training relating taxation, and that worked very well. Our approach is to do integration with as many third-party solutions as possible. We have everything developed to be API-based integration ready, meaning that we have been able to create these services by making API requests to any external publicly available API endpoints or private endpoints if we have access to them. For us, it means that we can provide information about what's the weather like in some Estonian areas, because this is provided by some external third-party service provider, but we make requests there and we generate answers based on it. We also use the statistics of Estonia and their APIs to make requests, like to ask what's the median salary in some region of Estonia and so on. But you can do anything based on the same logic. Ask for if you have your driver's license valid or whatever you like. This proof of concept that I mentioned that we just recently last week made is based on Microsoft's OpenAI Studio, but we will add many more similar services to Bürokratt's core functionalities, and Yep, also protocol-based integration. We have done a proof of concept with Linux Foundation. We came up together with a protocol similar to Matrix and others, which will be supported by Linux Foundation in the long run. And with this proof of concept, we kept Bürokratt working as it is. We only added one external additional layer to convert Linux Foundation's protocol understandable to Bürokratt. And with this proof of concept, we didn't do anything extra ourselves except adding this protocol conversion layer. And the Linux Foundation guys and some external developers created solutions based on this one, showcasing that you can talk to Bürokratt directly by not knowing Bürokratt's own protocol, but by using your own protocol. We also created a solution where they talk to Bürokratt by using their own speech. They used a middle layer of Google speech to text. So also we have had nothing to do with this part, but Bürokratt worked the same way as it was supposed to work. They also created a solution where they used Bürokratt as a proxy to talk to some Italian library, which also we had nothing to do with, but as we talked the same language on protocol level, then everything worked as expected. What we will do now next is that we'll pick the low-hanging fruits first, meaning that we will now focus a lot on adopting different LLMs, different kind of third-party solutions, which can efficiently be used for training. What makes us different from, let's say, ChatGPT or anything else is that we have to have full control over what kind of data is allowed to be used for training. So what we have to focus is on making sure that if some laws change, we have information that some laws changed, and we have to train it right away, not 6 months from now, but immediately. We also have to keep an eye on like who's the current president or who are the ministers of Estonia in Estonia right now and so on. So this is what we will focus, making sure that these data sources are always up to date in our models, and everything else we will not do ourselves. We will not produce LLMs ourselves, and we will not develop speech-to-text solutions and so on. And we'll focus on fine-tuning special cases in parallel. We will, as I said, we currently have this proof of concept in process with Microsoft, but we can also add Google Gemini, Meta Llama. We don't have any support today for speech-to-text and vice versa, and classifiers and so on. But as I just recently said, external parties have already showcased that speech-to-text using this functionality to use Bürokratt, this is not a problem if you just follow the protocols that we have agreed upon. And we will make sure that our clients, all these police and border guards and kindergartens and so on, they can choose by themselves which services and service providers they want to use, so that there are services which cost money, there are some which don't cost money. If something is for free, then you are probably the product yourself. Someone wise has said it before, so all of them can make their own choices, what kind of service providers they want to use, who they trust, and so on. And we will just make these integration layers. And in regard to protocol-based integrations, we will go on with this open integration, open by Linux Foundation. We want to integrate our systems with Matrix. We have done our proof of concept with Signal, plus WhatsApp. So once again, if data is used based on agreed protocols, then this is enough for everything to work. And that's it from my side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Rainer. That was very interesting to get to know more about. And just a reminder, if someone has any questions, feel free to ask them during this Q&A session. My question will be, first of all, what are kind of the main challenges you face so far making all this changes and all these plans happen?
I'd say not technical. The main problems have been, we expected that if we provide a training module for our clients to use for training data sets, that they want to use it if it's good enough. This hasn't happened, and I completely understand. I don't think that it will ever happen, especially now. This has been our biggest mistake. We still have to provide this training module to make some changes based on like how to train models based on what are the actual conversations by the actual clients. But in the end, yes, the biggest problem has been that nobody wants to train manually. If you have data already, then create all the pipelines to make these training pipelines work as automatically as possible, and that should be enough.
Mm-hmm. And talking about everything that you are doing right now, Bürokratt is a solution on one hand for the public sector organizations who can kind of have a contact with their own clients for that, and on the other hand, this is a solution that's just citizens can use to contact the government. So if you're looking to the perspective of the citizens, can you explain what will change with all these developments you have described right now for the citizens? So what would be the citizens' experience using the Bürokratt?
I expect that if these e-service integrations have been done, and these integrations will be developed by using Bürokratt's software, but will be done by all the institutions by themselves, by institution, for example, let's say Police and Border Guard. What will change in the long run is that I, as a citizen, I just ask, is my driver's license valid? And I get my response, I do not want to use any web portal for it. And I think that that's the main change that will happen. I don't actually, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that Bürokratt will be used to ask who's the president of Estonia and so on. I guess that's where Google will still be used to the most. But to access government e-services, this is where the change will be the biggest.
Mm-hmm. And the use of large language models would help to make this experience kind of more smooth and more positive for the citizens. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes. Like within this proof of concept with regarding taxation, it's it acts the same way as, let's say, ChatGPT, but the data is accurate. It's not relying on data that was added 2 or 3 years ago. So all these benefits that you get from LLMs today, these are with Bürokratt as well. If we rely on these external LLMs, yeah, that's it.
And you mentioned that you are collaborating with different web applications. You mentioned Signal, WhatsApp. So for citizens, what that would also mean?
I like the concept of matrix. Matrix is not too well known. It's actually a protocol, but it's if you are able to contact the matrix or talk to matrix via the protocol, then you have access to our different solutions as well. When we started with Bürokratt at first, then what we wanted to do is to set the government to be able to send messages to citizens via third-party solutions like Facebook, for example. And before we started with Bürokratt, we had another proof of concept. And this proof of concept showed that let's say you can't initiate contact with a citizen via Facebook if a citizen hasn't made this initial contact by themselves. So this sets some limitations. If we send messages to Signal or WhatsApp, then in case of emergency or for any other reasons, it's possible for the government to send these emergency messages to the citizens by using very different channels, and most likely one of them will hit them. And if I define my contacts, not just my phone number, but my Signal number and WhatsApp and so on, they are the same. But if I do this one, then these are just additional layers how to contact me. But I could also, if I don't want to use Bürokratt's chat widget, if I don't like it, if it's not good enough, I could talk to Bürokratt by using Signal, but I would get everything the same way. I could still use my government e-services, but by doing it by using some tools that I actually prefer to use, but the backend is still the same.
And the last question is, in the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned open data. So why it is important to publish open data?
Because that's what we, and I guess not only us, want to use to train our models. And once again, this idea isn't original to me. It's by Martin Oona from DEIK, but he always says that if some government institution does something, they do it based on some laws, and laws are not secret. So we have to make our decisions based on public data, but public data, why I prefer open data portal to, let's say, websites, is that there are so many different websites. They aren't always up to date. Even if they are still based on different technical solutions. They don't usually provide API-based access to their articles and so on. So if all this data is sent to open data portal, even if the quality if it's up to date, but it's maybe not structured as we would like it to be in an ideal case, then we can still use one source of truth. And if we have open data portal in Estonia, then we should really use it as much as possible. I think it's one of the most underused public sector service, which could have a major impact if used properly.
Thank you once again, Rainer, for this wonderful presentation and all of your answers. If anyone wants to continue the discussion with Rainer, you can see also on the screen the Rainer's email address. We will also share the materials a bit after our event. And I guess that would be it for today. We finish a bit earlier. Thanks again for all of the other experts who took part of this meeting, and hope to see you soon on some other upcoming events, as well as webinars, workshops, and many others. Goodbye and have a nice day.